All right, we're live.
Live.
Live here with Paco. So you guys know Paco. He's been on the show before. Many places you've seen Paco. Today we're just talking this morning. We're talking about everything going on, but what I think we should be talking about is today they're opening back up in New York City, opening business back up. So Paco, as a longtime businessman, I wanted to kind of just talk to you about what you think is happening, what you think should happen. Of course, also Paco is part of Singularity University, so he's forward thinking even further than most business owners. So what do you think, as being a New Yorker, business for many years? What do you think right now a business owner should be thinking? You know,
Well, to begin with, thank you for having me on your show. Your show, I think, is beginning to reach a lot of good people all over the place. I hear from the street about your show. So there are a lot of people, more people watching than probably we even know about. This is the most exciting time in my entire life, and I'm going to be 82 in 6 months, January 8th. And I've lived through some exciting times. I mean, I'm not going to go into any of that in this show, but believe me that I've lived through some exciting times during this time. In fact, I was born during World War II. So I was born right at the beginning of World War II, January 8, 1939. The war really kicked in 40, 41, 42. I forgot when the Americans joined the war. But so I was born in the middle of a war, the most incredible war, horrendous war that we have fought. This is more exciting than that, I think, and more exciting from the point of view of creating possible changes in this world. So anything that we knew before, as hard as it is, people have a tendency to say, well, you have to respect history because history will repeat itself. I think there's a truism to that. But this is the first time where history is going to be visibly transcended by the world, by humanity, in sort of a worldwide situation. And I usually say to the people that I work with, always remember to transcend but include. Transcend and include. You don't transcend and then throw everything out. You transcend and include those things that are possible. That's a kind of a philosophical answer. On the ground, I think, to your question, people have to reinvent themselves. Not only do they have to reinvent themselves from the point of view of what they were doing before may not work again in the same way going forward, but they have to be able to live in a space where you are reinventing yourself constantly.
okay.
So it's a different reinvention. Like if you said this, anywhere between 6 months ago to many years, reinvent yourself is, I'm going to do things differently and then I'm going to continue doing them the same way. Reinventing yourself now is reinventing yourself constantly. You have to be, the word that is used in environmental terms, you have to be organic. Nature reinvents itself every single day. It makes adjustments. So I think that people who are going to survive going forward are people who are capable of staying open and being creative, because there's a lot of opportunities now. I mean, I could tell you this, that there are people who've made millions of dollars in the last 3 months, billions in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, people have been talking about dying, masks, gloves, Corona, the whole issue that happened with George, the demonstrations. People even making money with the George thing. I saw a guy selling T-shirts. I can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
He was selling shirts, and people were buying them. People were not mad at him.
Mm-hmm.
People were not angry at him.
Yep. And it's true. I
He
think
was writing shirts, and he was making money, dude. And that's okay. That's fine. So I think going forward, people have to have a. I guess the way to say it is you have to have an attitude about this, which either makes you reactive, which means that you react to things from your past experiences, or you could be responsive. The difference between the two is that when you respond, you create a space between the stimulus and the response.
So you like delay to think a little.
You delay to think a little, to look at it, but then you act. Then you act. And I think that that's a formula that people have to learn. They have to constantly ask themselves, who are they? It's a question that the Korean Zen masters use a lot in Korea. Who is Miguel Sanchez? Who is Paco? Who is so-and-so? Well,
You have to keep asking yourself
that's
that.
a stupid question. I know who I am. Or do you really know who you are? Is that true? You know who you are? Well, who are you? Well, I'm a father. I'm a brother. I'm a businessman. Is that who you really are? Well, that's what I do. I said, well, then he asked you what you do. I asked you, who are you? Who are you? And most of us can't answer that question. It's a question that sometimes doesn't have an answer. So it's a question that might never have an answer, but it's a question that you have to always ask. Who am I? And then when like, for instance, who's showing up to this show? Which Paco is showing up to this show? I'm hoping that the Paco that's showing up is a Paco that can share the experiences, that can maybe help one person listening to us say, I really got to deal with this. And if I can help one person of the many that are listening, that's fine with me. So who's showing up? Paco showing up? Well, the Paco that just took a shower didn't have time to get dressed. Still on my
Starts at 11.
No, but if they get mad at me, I just threaten to take it off. So Paco likes to be funny too. Paco likes to laugh, because if you don't laugh about all of these things, then you get too esoteric or too serious.
George says, "What's up?" Do you remember George?
Hey, George. Ibaro. How you doing? Can't hear him.
No, he just put up. He just made a message.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Ibaro came to my house, man. We had some back at the house.
Yeah. We gotta catch up. With him. I had him on the show, but we gotta catch up behind the scenes. If you want to jump on, let me know, George. So basically what I've been thinking about is a lot of stuff me and you talk about. It's funny, like you said, like you're 82, but I have probably the most advanced technology conversations with you. Like about where we see the opportunities within new technology, within AI, data, IoT, all these things. Me and Paco have these conversations. So as a person that owned a restaurant, you've owned almost every type of business you can own. What would you tell the current entrepreneur they should be doing right now? Like I know your knowledge of all these industries plus the technology, you must have like this unique perspective. And I think right now is a good time to have people who are about to have to open up their businesses again, but in a different way. How would you do it now?
Well, one of the things that I think that I've always had is I've been either fearless by design and by nature, or I've been stupid, But I've always flown my plane as I'm building it. I've never been afraid to go into new ventures. I'm high risk, but I've never been reckless. And there's a difference between being reckless and taking high risk. And we could talk about that some other day. What is the difference between reckless and being? But I've never feared failure. I've never feared putting money into something and losing it. You know, I've always taken care of my family. I make sure that my family is taken care of, the rent, the groceries, and stuff like that. You know, but I've never been afraid, you know, to go into a deal. You know, but I've always said to myself, if you put the money in there, it's money that you can afford to lose. It's not money that you're putting your family in jeopardy. So you could be high risk. Uh, um, at the same time, you could be very conservative about the way you take the high risk. So it's an attitude of adventure. I've always been excited about this whole technology. To me, it's an adventure. I mean, I have fun going in and studying at night the different kinds of things. I send you stuff from Singularity University, man. And I said, I know this turkey is not going to read all this stuff. I know he's not going to read all this stuff, but I'm going to send it to him anyway. So going forward, you have to be, in a sense, fearless. If you are a spiritual person and you are a Christian or you're a Muslim or you're a Jew or you're a Buddhist like me, you have to be able to trust in the universe. You have to have a certain amount of faith, you know, because there's no guarantees. I mean, I usually say kiddingly to my wife, I say, give me a hug, honey, because it might be the last. So sometimes she gets ticked off at me, you know. She says, "Oh man, you're so negative about this." I said, "It's not negative. It's not negative. I'm just trying to be real about the world that we live in. Because every time you leave the house and you get in the car, it's an act of faith. You don't know if you're coming back." George, when he left Minneapolis that morning, didn't think, "I'm not coming back. Cops are going to kill me. The cop is going to put a knee in my neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and I'm going to be dead." He didn't think of that. Kobe Bryant, when he left his house with his daughter to get on a helicopter, he didn't think that he was not going to come back. What are you, crazy? Of course I'm going to come back. So, you know, having that present moment awareness is not being fatalistic, which is what we've been taught. You're fatalistic, man. You're looking at the negative side. No. It's being able to be so present that you savor, you enjoy, you know, you taste every moment of your life as being absolutely precious. And that's the practice. In business, is the same thing. It's what my teacher used to call socially engaged entrepreneurship. Socially engaged entrepreneurship. That you still do an entrepreneurship, that you still want to make your business succeed, that you still want to make money, but you also have, as part of that formula, what good could my business do for the universe? And if my business is just building widgets, which is not necessarily easy to say what is the good that it's doing, then I take some of the money that I make and I give it to my church, or I give it to poor people, or whatever it is. So when you create that balance, then you'll be ready to go forward into what I believe is the unknown. This is an unknown world. There's no one that can tell you that they know anything about going forward in this world. So that's my advice. And my advice is that, you know, where possible, you know, save your cash, stay cash rich, watch out for the banks. Don't put all your money in the banks. Stay cash. Cash is king. Cash is king. So, you know, as much as you can put, whether it's $10 or whatever, stay as cash liquid as you possibly can. Anybody who tells you that it's a time to invest in Wall Street, run away from them.
A lot of people, what stock? I'm gonna leave when I talk. It's doubling. They asked me, what stock should I put my stuff in? I'm like, everybody's telling me don't put anything in stock. George asked a question. What is a piece of advice that you feel is timeless, that doesn't change regardless of technology?
I think the advice is that I say to people, are you taking care of yourself? Oh, yeah, I'm taking care of myself. Well, what does that mean? Well, you know, I take care of myself. I said, well, tell me more. And usually they can't. And I usually say to people, aside from business, aside from your children, your wife, and the people you love, you know, you have to love yourself. Oh, but that's narcissistic. No, 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 no. Self-care is never a selfish act. Because if Hibaro can't take care of himself, if he's not healthy mentally, spiritually, physically, he can't take care of anybody. So that advice is universal across the board for the last 3,000 years. You got to be able to take care of yourself, not in a narcissistic way. So, you know, this morning, the reason I'm still in my shower, Bata, is that I did 3.5, 4 miles in Van Cortlandt. What?
I know.
What? Yes. What is that about? You love running? Yes, I like running. You love running? I like running. What do you mean? You don't love running? Hell no. Getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting in the car, doing all the things that I do in the house, and then making sure that I'm in the track to do that. No, that is not necessarily something that I aspire to do. But this car needs maintenance. And so I got to do whatever I need to do to maintain this car healthy. So that's, you know, and it's self-love is profoundly fundamental, whether you're a businessman, whether you're a wife, a husband, a father, because then you're able to do that. So Vijabarito, that would be my answer to your
self-care. Take care of yourself first, because you can't do anything without taking care of yourself, basically. Which was Paco. We have conversations. So I called him this morning. He's like, I just did 16,000 steps, and I'm like, I think I maybe did 10. But you know, Paco has been outside every day of COVID, and I've been like, Paco, you gotta be careful, man. This is your age. They target this disease. This virus is going after people your age. You gotta be careful. He's like, I'm not worried about it. Don't worry about me. I remember something. The first times we started meeting about working together, we would always meet and you'd say, today's a great day to die. And I remember being like, no, it's not. And then you started like getting me into that mind state of, this might be our last time meeting, right? So we got to work to make sure we get as much done between our next meeting as possible. So that's been something that I've taken, that hopefully somebody watching this from what you just said starts to think, because it's true. Look at what you said. George Floyd, Kobe was my age. I remember that, you know, like, fuck, what if it ended at this age, you know?
Interestingly enough, that saying is a Native American saying. You know, there will be the horse, they will be out there in the riding or whatever it is. And it could be sunny, or it could be raining. It could be anything. And they would say, you know, it's a nice day to die. Well, did they mean that this was a nice day for them to be dead? No, the opposite. They were saying this is a nice day to be alive. That's what they were really saying. They were not saying I want to die, or this is a nice day that I can die. Bullshit. They were just taking a negative position on something that's positive. But if they say, well, what a nice day to live, didn't mean anything. But if you say, what a nice day to die, today is a nice day to die, they were really saying is, isn't it wonderful that I'm alive? You know, so those are things that sometimes we forget, because the world that I live in has a tremendous amount of competing demands against my time. And everybody who's listening right now is equally stressed out by the competing demands. And the competing demands could be, and I'm saying competing demands, not negative. I'm not making a judgment on competing demands. We all have either wives or children or mothers or fathers, sisters, brothers, which are our immediate blood family. And then we have our businesses and our acquaintances and our dear friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then that circle keeps growing to our community, whether it's the Bronx, New York City, the state of New York, the country of the United States, and citizens of the world. We're citizens of the world. And as citizens of the world, all of us have competing demands. How we manage those competing demands is the key, because some of us believe that we have to save the world. Well, I want to leave the world better than I got it. I want to change the world. I want to do that. But that has to be put in a context that allows me to continue to be functional and effective and be in a position to execute. What does that mean? That means that you have to be able to figure out what is inside of me, that needs to be tending to, you know, and we all of us, everybody, we have either demons or monsters or negative perspective, notions, concepts that says, somebody just wrote about, going back and opening the business. That's a very, very personal kind of a thing. You got to say to yourself, why am I not motivated and got the fire in the belly to go about and open that business? You got to sit with yourself, because nobody's going to give you the answer to that question. Your wife is not going to give you. The question is inside of you. I tell people that. Hold a second. Mikey.
So Mike Pagan, just so you know, is me and Paco's partner in a few things. So Thought Fox from Twitch, thank you for watching. But I would tell you, kind of what respect Paco is saying is, there's some reason it could be motivation of just the difference of being in lockdown, of liking that environment and not having to go back to work. But to me, if is there something that doesn't make you want to go back, then I would reevaluate that business. Because I was in a room one time, and there was this top level consultant, and he said, what would you do to change your business if you knew you would have to work that business to the day you died? To the day you pass out and die, you were going to work this business. What would you change in that business to make it different? So that's the type of advice that right now I think we all should be looking at. Because if we look at the old model, right? The old model, there's a few ways. You have it's called a lifestyle business, which just pays your bills. Or you have a business that is trying to scale and get acquired and exit from, right? So lifestyle businesses, if you have a lifestyle business and you don't like the business, you are basically giving up your life, because you work most of your life. So if you're in a lifestyle business and you are questioning going back, maybe I would look back and say, what in this business do I have to change so I want to go every day? Not to say you have to go every day, but you put the situation in place so you want to go every day. And it's hard. It's a lot of work. I'm doing the same thing with everything I'm involved in, because I did okay being in this coronavirus lockdown. If anything, I was working more than ever. So I feel like I may be in a position where I can do what I do right now till I die, but I don't know. So we got another guest coming on.
Yeah, I used to own a restaurant. And when I owned that, hey, Mikey, welcome. Let me finish this.
Hello, guys.
I used to own a restaurant, and I owned the restaurant for about 3 years. It was called Don Pepe. It was on Southern Boulevard and Southern Boulevard, and se me fue la callecita, but it'll come back to me in a second. I had just graduated from Iona College, so this is 1964, and I realized at some point after owning the restaurant for 2.5 years that, number one, that was not a business for me. Number two, that I hated to go to the restaurant, in the morning, because sometimes I had to cook and and I love cooking. And I realized that I had to sell it. So ultimately I sold it to my partner for $1. That's a long story, but I'm not going to take you there, because all people take them to the woods. and I'm glad that Mike is here. But if I so that became my thing. If I hated, if I was driving and I was going to the office, whatever business, oh man, I don't want to go to the office. I knew something was wrong. Well, I've been married 4 times. If I knew, oh man, I don't want to go home. Oh man, I knew that it was time for my wife to throw me out or for me to leave. I don't want to go home. No, I don't want to go home. I'll stay until 2, 3 o'clock out in the morning out, and I'll say that I was in the office. If you're not doing that stuff, you got to change. Michael, welcome. How you doing, Papi? Listen, I'm sorry about Carla. She okay?
She'll be okay. I think so.
All right.
She'll make our trip. The beauty about entrepreneurship, right? If you're working, if you feel like you're working and it's a job, then it's you're not really working. Then it's not entrepreneurship, because the beauty is that you don't need a vacation from the work. The business is the vacation that you built. So the moment that something becomes a job, the best time is just sell it and move on to the next venture. Or get a management team to deal with the day-to-day stuff, so you can just enjoy the margins that you're getting.
100%. So Mike is a serial entrepreneur. I've been trying to get him on the show for many weeks. Him and Paco have been working on a few things, but Mike, I know your background is crazy. I don't know how much time you have. Can you tell people what you did before you became an entrepreneur, and then what made you become an entrepreneur?
Do we have enough time?
I'll
try to give the shorter version of it. Well, you know, growing up in the Bronx, when you're growing up, you either you have something, which we'll call it privilege, or you don't have nothing. And I'm not gonna say I didn't have anything. I just didn't have enough that I felt was enough. For example, you know, when you're a younger kid and you want a nice pair of sneakers, and mommy says, "Okay, the sneakers cost $200, but back in the days it must have been 80." You know, but mommy, I want that, and I want the sweater, and mommy would say, "Here's $100, make it work." But that $100 didn't get what I wanted. So what I needed to do was find a way to make money. So at an early age, I used to go and clean out the bottles, and then I would pack bags in the supermarket at the same time, so that I can make more money to buy the things that I wanted. So to me, that's where it all started. I must have been like 9 or 10 years old, maybe a little older, give or take. Then I started selling the New York Times door to door. Wow. And I think and we're talking about selling the New York Times in Webster projects. So if anyone on this call outside of New York, we were selling it in the 80s in some of the most dangerous projects in New York. And I went door to door, and I'm selling the New York Times. I was selling like 30, 40 prescriptions a day.
Nice.
Subscriptions to New York Times. So I made a few $100 doing that. And then on the weekend, I'll go deliver flyers, and I'll make a few $100 doing that. So that would allow me to buy or invest in whatever the hell I felt like it at the time. So I was 14, 15 years old, making $600 a week. And we're talking about in early.
Oh, lost them.
So
we lost you. We lost you real quick. Last thing we heard was you making $600 a week.
Yeah, I was making like $600 a week, and then that became the early stages of entrepreneurship. And then back in did I ever have a job? Okay, so when I was 24, 25, in that range, 23, I opened up my first brokerage firm called All American Brokerage, focusing on, you know, taxi insurance. But before that, I sold life insurance, and then I was able to get into the property and casualty world. And then where I really hit it was with delivery taxi insurance. I was selling because at the time I had a contract with I forgot the limousine insurance at the time, and everybody had to renew on March 1st. So it was kind of like how taxi season worked. So my first season, I did over 2,000 cars. I was 25 years old, I made my first $1 million. And my birthday is February 28th. So all my money was coming in the week of my birthday. So I knew I worked my ass off for that whole week. And then boom, the first came. I got all my money up front. You know, it was the first time I made $10,000 in a day. I was like, oh my God. So the story doesn't get prettier after that. I ended up selling it because anybody who's an entrepreneur, make sure you know your partners and make sure you have the right contracts and legal language in place, because what you love today, you're gonna hate tomorrow if you're not legally prepared. So once you get the legal stuff taken care of, you know you're okay moving forward, because you don't know if the business is going to be worth $1 million or $1 billion. And the worst case scenario is to be stuck $1 billion, and you're like, oh my God, you know, it's not looking pretty. So I sold the business and then I took a job. So, you know, when you make $1 million a year and then you make $46,000 a year, it hurts, right? So this is like 2001. I started working in healthcare, and then I took it and I worked that for a few years, and then I ended up going back out because entrepreneurs can't stay working for somebody for long, and I went back out.
That opportunity is too crazy. And now tell people what you do now, because you do like 1,000 things now.
Well, I own a few home care businesses that take care. See, anybody that knows home care, we provide services to the elderly and disabled. So we own 2 businesses in New York. We're probably in the 800 employee range now. I also own a pharmacy that provides for a few thousand people with services in New York, retail pharmacy. And we own an adult daycare to provide social services for also seniors in there. We own a retail business that we set up because entrepreneurs need to find a need. And if you got the need, or you see that there is a product, but you have a better way to push it, then that's where you step into a market, and then you try to do your due diligence to see if you can make some money.
I think we should talk about the thing me, you, and Paco whipped up during COVID in like record time. Let's tell the people the story about how this went down. You started off.
All right, I'm gonna give the version, and then when Sir Paco steps in, it was like, oh no, the timing is not the timing that is real, because timing is important in business, and setting expectations on timing is even more important, because I learned from this man that told me everything is linear, right? So everything has to be structured in 90 days. But in this kind of business, in this kind of market, we put together a PPE company, which is the self-protective equipment. And I was on the way of saying, okay, we'll manufacture it, and because the cost is lower, but it's going to take us like 6 months to do it. And the gentleman, Baco, on the call said, dude, you need to get it done in 90 days. And I was like, how the hell are we going to get this done in 90 days? So we were able to. So I did him one better. We got it done in a week. Because an entrepreneur needs to know that he can't control everything. And he needs to know that sometimes you take a loss to gain down the road. And and a loss is not really a loss. A loss is a gain of knowledge. So we built this PPE business. We knew we couldn't produce product today, but we can coordinate a deal with Asia to be able to get the product over here at a rate that makes sense. So we did it, and Miguel and I have been working diligently so we can do social media and online marketing. I'm not a fan of social media and online marketing, but I'm a fan and a believer of social media and online marketing today. I'm old school. I might be younger, a little older than Paco, but I'm still a little young. I'm old in thinking because I like the face-to-face handshaking kind of business. I like to know who you are. Online you don't get that kind of value. You kind of have to put content for people to see it. So I wasn't accustomed to that. But through working with Miguel and learning how to do online marketing and target marketing, we basically took the street guerrilla style and put it into the internet. And what I tell anyone that does online business, this is my own food for thought. You might not be successful on the first business, but the first business is going to teach you for the second and the third business. So when I said, okay, we don't make $1 million on the first go around, but I bet you we'll be well prepared for the second and the third go around, because you never know which company is going to take off.
100%.
And as good as you have an idea, an idea is just like mental masturbation. If there's no execution to that idea, it's just an idea.
Exactly.
So
Worth
the
nothing.
problem with
So my input into this is, these young people
Sorry,
can't
man.
remember shit, but Mike said we start the process. The first part of the process to build the factory in Puerto Rico is going to take 90 days, and then 6 months to be able to really get an operation. I said, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. He said, what do you mean? I said, whatever we're going to do has got to be put down in 30 days. 30 days? So we got to figure out a way of doing it in 30 days. Now, where does that thinking come from? We've been taught, I was taught from my graduation at Iona College in '64, which is basically before your parents were born, practically, for a lot of you, that linear thinking is step by step by step by step. You gotta scale up. You gotta scaffold up, step by step by step by step. That's been the code. Because of Miguel Sanchez, who sends me a book a day to read, and I read them. He reads faster than me. I've learned that in technology, linear thinking does not work, hasn't worked for a long, long time. What works in technology is exponential thinking. So what does that mean? It means that linear thinking is, you're going to take 30 steps. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 28, 29, 30. You take the 30 steps. In exponential thinking, you're going to take the same 30 steps, except that you go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 30, etc., etc., etc. By the time you get to your 30th step exponentially, you've gone around the world a couple of times. So it isn't that I'm inventing taking 90 days or 60 or 6 months and consolidating them into 30. The fact of the matter is that these guys, they ran with it. This guy was up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning dealing with China, putting a deal together, export, import, putting cost practice together. And him and Miguel would talk at 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, I slept 3 hours, But that's what it really, really takes, that kind of thing. So the advice for new entrepreneurs, man, is you got to think faster. But what Mike Pagan, what MK said is that you have to execute. You have to execute. And what I said before is, if you're fearful about executing because you might lose money, because it might be the wrong thing, and I got to analyze it, and I got to plan it, you'll end up being what is it?
Analysis by paralysis.
Paralysis of analysis.
Analysis, yeah.
You got these days. You got to move. You got to move. So if you fail, what happens if you fail? Well, you get your butt up again and you try again, and you learn. What did you learn from that one? And you leverage it. You leverage your losses as learning opportunities. I love working with these two guys because these two guys, they're young, but they're fearless. At the same time, Mike Pagan it belongs to a political party that I don't belong to, but it's the only party that I've ever made money with. So I'm not gonna say that, because what party you belong to, because it's a very personal kind of a thing. But you guys can figure it out. But Mike Pagan and Miguel both are very conservative. They're not reckless. Miguel has not moved out of his freaking apartment for 3 months. Why? Because he has 2 kids or 3 kids that suffer from extreme asthma, where normal times he's had to run to the emergency room with them. And him and Julie, his wonderful wife, have made a sacrifice that because they love their kids, they're not going out. You tell me about having the courage and the grit to stay home and still do a business, take care of the kids, and not go out because you don't want to be part of one of those kids.
100%.
Mike Pagan is the same way. Mike Pagan is very family center, wife center, daughter center. So you got to put a balance in. I just don't want to give an impression that it's un montón de loco and that we don't care. And so we have tremendous love for ourselves, but we're able to love our families. And we know what's important. Making money is okay. Getting involved in entrepreneurship. Mike and I are going to Puerto Rico in a week on Monday. We're putting practically together almost 100 million plus. I don't want to say the real number because you won't believe me if I say something else.
It scares people.
Consortium to build housing in Puerto Rico. Two guys, three, and Miguel is involved with this, with everything. I mean, 2 guys from the Bronx, bro. 3 guys from the Bronx. 4 guys from the Bronx,
really. I know you, Mike. Somebody had asked the question. I agree, ideas are cheap, and execution matters most. How do you decide which ideas are worth executing?
The one that makes you scared.
Love that.
The one that makes you scared. The one that you can't sleep. The one that you feel you're gonna lose it all.
Ooh.
Because if you can't put it all on the line, then you're not uncomfortable enough.
Ooh, I like
entrepreneurship is pure uncomfortability.
That's 1,000%. Fear management, right?
It's fear. It's grittiness. It's oh my God, oh shit, and what am I gonna do? And if you're not saying oh my God, oh shit, and what am I gonna do? Then you're not afraid. It's not enough. Listen,
I like that.
I heard something. I love to listen to like specific artists, like I'm talking about hip hop artists, like the Master P's of the world and the Fat Joes of the world, to hear what they say. And I heard one thing from Yo Gotti. And anyone who knows Yo Gotti, he's an entrepreneur from the South. He said you have to be ready to make a certain amount of money. Like they can't just tomorrow give a kid $1 billion. He's gonna lose his mind. So you have to structure yourself to be ready to deal with certain aspects. So like once you get to one level, you understand what that level, and then you start working 3 levels up, and little by little you grow. And as you grow, your business grows. But I would love to tell every entrepreneur, don't do nothing for money. Do something that you can give away for free. Because if you could give it away for free, then you know it's real. Because if you have to do it for money, you're never going to be satisfied. Because money is not satisfied. Money is not the root of all evil, because having it is great. But having it is great. But if that's the only satisfaction you got on it, you're going to live an empty life.
100%.
To me, family is everything. My daughter competing in the Olympics is everything. Seeing my friends happy is everything. Having good partners is everything. And if we could turn a buck, then it made it that much more beneficial. So I want people to know that out the gate, because the moment you wanted that money to buy that fancy car, when you got the fancy car, it didn't feel like nothing. It's like, oh great, it's a nice car. So you go buy another car. Yeah. And you realize that you're still empty.
Emptiness, right? But you're not really feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah, Kanye West said it best. He said, I bought the Lamborghini. I thought it was going to do everything, but it wasn't the Lamborghini. It was the hustle to make the song.
Yeah. That's right. So I know Mike is chopping for Paco. So how do you that fear question? That was a good one. What makes you?
I'm on a podcast right now.
That was excellent.
Can I hit you right back?
Yeah. Do you have any advice for somebody that's struggling with what idea to choose, Paco?
Wait, I'm sorry. The question?
Do you have any advice for someone who's struggling to pick an idea to work on?
Well, see, ideas are tough. Paco, you going to jump on that?
Yeah, I agree.
Ideas are hard because everything sounds good. So the problem with entrepreneurs, or the problem with people in general, is that they have great ideas, but they don't know how to put it together. They don't understand the bank accounts that have to be done, the corporations that have to be created. There's a whole process before you even start to sell a product. So, or a service. To me, I would look at injecting into. I would look at the market and see where it is, and determine on where your place in that market is going to be.
Oh, we lost. Hold on. We cut out. Last thing we heard was where you're gonna be. Where you're gonna be. It cut out. Can you hear?
I don't
Can you
hear.
hear me? You hear me? No. Restart it. Refresh. Come back out.
We lost you. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paco, what about you? Any advice for someone with a good? I know me and you, we have new ideas every day.
Now, I think that one of the things that I have not spoken about is that I want to be able to say that, I used to say to people, I'm not that smart. I'm not that smart. I used to say to people, I am smart. As I said, I went to college when most people from the Bronx were not going to college, in a sense, unless you were like people. But I always look for mentors. I always look for somebody who knew a little more than I did. So I owe a lot of the things that I am today to a lot of people who said, Paco, you have the potential to do this. Paco, never be afraid to ask questions. Paco, never be afraid to jump off what the Buddhists call the 108-foot pole. Jump off, and what if there's nothing but cement down there? What if there's no water? Jump off, man, jump off. You can do it, Paco. You can fly, Paco. So I had a lot of people who were encouraging. I said, well, I don't know, go for it, probably, So, and I've always never been afraid to ask, which a lot of people say I'm on my own. I want to do it by myself. I don't need anybody. I'm smart enough. Bidi bing, bidi bing. Not me. I knew that I had certain skill sets, but I also knew that I had certain things that I was not so skill set at. So let's be very granular on this. In all my businesses, I knew that I was the rainmaker. I knew that I can make rain, but boy, was I lousy at collecting the rain with buckets. I was lousy. So I got myself surrounded by a lot of people who could carry the book. What does that mean? Who could do the administration, who could do the detail, who could do the accounting, who could make sure that we were legally correct. Tell me, Paco, what does that look like in a business? I go to my controller and I say to my controller, make me a check for $1,000. I want to donate $1,000 to this politicians. I'm not writing you a check for $1,000. Excuse me, whose business is this? Is it your business? Who you work for? You work for me, right? Write me a check for $1,000 that I want to give to this. Boss, I'm not writing you a check for $1,000. I want to tell you something, boss. I'd rather you fire me than me write you a check, because what you're asking me to do is not legal. You cannot write a check to a politician for that. Oh, is that right? I surrounded myself with people who had the guts, the smarts to say to the boss, no, I'm not writing you because I'm protecting your butt. So all my people were left because I was a rainmaker, and sometimes I would do crazy things like that, like write me a check. I mean, stupid, But my people were smart, and my people knew that they could be smart, and my people knew that they could push back on me, because that's the way I hired them. I hired a controller. I said, I hired you to keep me out of trouble, because sometimes, as smart as I am, I'm not that smart. So that's the kind of granular thing that you got to do. What was my skill? Making rain. What was the thing that I couldn't do? I couldn't keep the business going on the administrative side. Could I do it? Yes, but I didn't like it. I didn't like the details. So I surrounded myself with a lot of people who could show me up. I played baseball for 17 years. I played as a catcher. I knew sometimes that I had a shortstop, that was a little slow going to the right, to a third base. So I would say to my third baseman, mira, you have to cover a lot of more ground to your left, because Papito Chulo aquí, he goes terrific to the left, and he has an arm like a cannon, but to the right, he has problems. So you got to be able to cover more of your ground third base. You kind of look at situations like that from a catcher's point of view. I used to be able to see the whole field. That's the only person that sees the whole field other than the manager. everybody's going looking this way. The catcher's looking that way. So you make adjustments. But how do you do that? By being real, by being honest, by not denial. I said, people, denial is not just a river in Egypt. It's real. We all suffer from it.
So what about you, Mike? Any advice for, I mean, I forgot what you were talking about. You said you had something to say.
No, I'm going to jump on. I'm going to add to Paco's and spin it around a few times. You know, the problem with people, we're all guilty of this. We got the I can do it all myself attitude. Because sometimes we don't want to take the opportunity to teach someone. You know, and I have problems with the person that runs my office sometimes. She wants to do everything herself because she says, I'm going to do it. Don't worry, I'm going to do it. I say, but you know, if you teach the other person how to do it, that's one less thing you have to worry about. And in the beginning, they're not going to get 100% right. It's going to go from 20% to 50 to 80 to 90, and then they're perfect. And then you don't need to do it anymore. So I didn't have mentors early on in my career. I said, you know what? Man, that's not true. I've heard good lines from people where somebody might have said something and I'm like, wow, that makes sense. And I remember being a boy growing up in the Bronx, my friend told me, Michael, when the cops are coming, make sure you're across the street because they're going to attack the mob first. That philosophy has stayed with me my entire life. Because that wasn't a mentorship, that was a jewel he dropped for me. So you have to learn, you have to pick up these jewels that people say. And the problem with people is ego. So I always say, check your ego at the door. When you have a conversation, don't think your part is better than his part because his point of view is different based on his life experience, education, culture, stuff like that. So once you kind of check your ego at the door, you'll have a respect for what people have to say. And I teach like my kids, which they're the best teachers at this point for me. I tell her, you know, you don't know everything. And the faster you realize you know nothing, you're going to learn.
That's good.
Yeah. So those are my educational experiences. And then I was able to get under certain people that I was able to learn business tactics from. So I always said I got formal education and I got street education and I got the big boys that, you know, two of them became billionaires. And I learned from them on how they negotiated deals and that helped me. So I feel like God, if people are not religious, but I am, it aligns you to get in a position to do what you want, what's in your heart. And that has helped me, led me to Paco, led me to Miguel, and to me it happens at the right time. You can't control that. So as fast as you want things to go, it doesn't work that way. It takes time. And when you look back, you say, wow, it took me 2 years to build it, or 3 years, or 5 years. That's really not a lot of time in the essence of life to build a business and a brand. So
yeah, that's good.
Here all day, man. This stuff is all real.
No, this is all valuable. I'm sure everybody watching is you both dropping gems. So it's the last few minutes. I guess what are some ways? Like I know I put up the site that we built, you know, with the mask. But what are some final advice right now? The New York City is about to reopen, right? Any advice you would give an entrepreneur right now, post COVID, that could help them just do better in these times?
If you're young, if whoever's watching this is young, I would educate yourself on coding. I would educate yourself on how systems work. And if you feel going to school for 15 years is a long time, it's not. We need more bioengineers. We need more biotech guys that can build products for the future. Because the problem in society is that the mundane work is gone. It's going to be gone. So if you're thinking, I'm going to own a truck route, forget about that.
Yeah.
You know, think about what's going to happen 20 years from now from an industry standpoint and start chipping away at that. Look at what they're doing in outer space. Get up on technology and science, because you might say, I don't like science, but I'm going to tell you, you're going to like business. So take those ideas from knowledge, and then you can wrap businesses around it. So COVID right now with social distancing, how can you create products that work for it? That depends on your aptitude. We built some stuff that's working for us, might not work for the next person. I recommend everyone, man, go learn coding, learn social strategy with marketing, because that's the present and the future.
I agree.
Learn
Paco,
AI if you can.
AI for sure. How about you, Paco? Any advice? Final advice for anyone right now?
I agree 1,000% with Mike. You have to do what this young man Paco is doing right now. I read any and every book that comes out about technology. I'm probably pushing like I don't do the 5 books a month, but I'm still doing 3 a month.
For years.
And I read and I do audiobooks, so I listen to a lot of books while I'm driving. Because he said I haven't stopped. I've gone out every day since this thing. And I would study China. I would read any book on technology that talks about what's going on in China, not politically, but from a business point of view. The young people in China are probably 5 years, if not more, ahead of all of us, ahead of all of you who are watching, ahead of all 3 of us, 5 years or more in terms of the culture they're building around how do you do business. The stuff that I said before, these kids, they don't sleep. They don't sleep. They have an idea. I'm going to use a word that doesn't sound right, but they're ruthless. They're ruthless about their ideas. It's not, you have to have passion in your belly. You have to have fire in your belly. They're ruthless. And they're ruthless among themselves. That's how they compete. We're not even there yet. Now, can you be compassionate and lovingly ruthless? Of course you can. Of course you can. Because I hear somebody say, well, that sounds horrible. Blah, 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 blah. Some of our religious backgrounds, whether it's Christian, whether it's Buddhist, whether it's Muslims, a lot of that stuff has put stuff on our cucarachas in our head that we're not allowed to move out. Man, what are you talking about? Study China. They're ahead of us. They're ahead of us. And if we can catch up, particularly young people who are looking at this thing, you'll learn a lot. I'm learning a lot about how they're doing business. And Mike and I are going to Puerto Rico next week, and we're going to be compassionate, ruthless.
I love it. I love it.
I'll leave my last 2 cents.
Yeah.
Last 2 cents. You have to be disciplined and sacrifice. You have to sacrifice everything. Because if you don't sacrifice, right? And what I mean by sometimes sacrificing is your time. People are like, oh, I want to go to the club, or I want to do this. So focus on what you're doing. Sacrifice time, sacrifice your life. Like I said, I sacrificed my life so my kids could live. And I made a pretty successful life doing it. But the reality is I gave up so much of my life and time to build. And you have to. There's no way around that. If you think you're gonna work part-time and become successful, it ain't happening. You're working 80 hours a week, which might sound like a lot, but when you love it, it ain't really work.
Exactly.
I go to bed 3, 5 in the morning, depends. So, just and don't worry. The harder you work, the more luck you will have. Because as much as I don't believe in luck, I believe in momentum of it. So the more and more you work at it, the more and more you're gonna have a better success at it. And when you feel down, push harder because you have to. It's the hardest thing to do, because you get discouraged, especially when you hear it in your ears. People saying you're not good enough or you can't make it, or
Even sometimes you
your
put
own
it on
brain
yourself.
tells you.
Yep, your own brain, exactly.
Your own brain says it. Your brain says, "Don't do it today. Give up.
Yeah,
Let it go."
Yep.
All of us have 2 wolves inside our head, said a Native American.
I like this. I like it. Tell the story.
A negative wolf and a positive wolf. And they're fighting all the time. The negative. And the little boy says to the grandfather, "Grandfather, Which wolf wins? Which one wins? And grandfather says, the one you feed. You feed the positive wolf, and the positive wolf will win.
I love it. I love it. That's a great story.
Always.
Great final comments. We're coming up on the hour. Support our partnership. If you need a mask, working on ways of getting. I even have a new idea. I haven't even told you guys yet. We're gonna jump on the call. But we're giving you a discount. Thank you for
Protect us. Protect us. Gear.com. Protect us. Gear.com.
Protect technology. We got protection.
Always technology.
But thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming on the show, and thank you for watching. You definitely gonna see more of these two guys for sure. And have a good day. Stay safe out there with COVID. Everybody watching. Thank you.